Hello everybody and welcome to Tiger Tales, a place you'll find stories and fanfictions written and read to you by your host, me, Tai Tiger. Today we're diving back into Power Rangers Universe 2118, also known as Power Rangers Global. This is a three-way collaborative project of the Three Ranger Bros. This story was actually made by myself, Cosplay Dude 637, and Mark, the Red Cornish Ranger. More about their work that they do on their podcasts and stuff in the outro. But let's dive in with Power Rangers Global. Power Rangers Global sees Loki, the god of mischief, using the morphing grid to manipulate the other gods, and he now rules over Earth. So Brohan, Zordon's lost long brother, collects 4 different Rangers from 4 different universes and asks for their help. In this chapter, we're gonna see another mythical creature turned into a monster, which has been a repeating thing in the last couple chapters. But some questions get answered. Some answers reveal more questions. And of course we have Heimdall pop up another time. So let's dive in with Power Rangers Global. Power Rangers Global, Chapter 7. Fangs fallen from the father. The global team teleported into another library, and everyone walked out and looked around. Okay, don't question. Please know I don't have countries where I'm from, but where the hell are we? Lip asked with a sigh.
We are in Hanover, Germany.
Elias replied.
How did you figure that?
Mark asked.
That statue over there, it's a Odin.
Elias said, pointing to a large statue across the park. The team walked over to it and gazed at the statue. Odin sat on the chair with his ravens by his side.
What's with the birds?
Eric asked.
They are like his eyes and ears. They relay information to him.
Himiko explained.
Well, that ain't creepy at all.
Mark hushed.
Well, I mean, Grandfather has always been a little paranoid.
A deep voice said behind them. The whole team turned around and saw a wolf-like monster stood behind them. They all dropped into their fighting stance, ready. The wolf monster laughed.
Oh, please. I am Finroar. I am the ultimate monster, and I need to destroy that statue.
The monster stated.
We're gonna stop you. It's kind of our job around here.
Mark barked. Fenrir dropped down into his own fighting stance, his fingertips armed with strong and sharp claws. Fenrir bolted at the Rangers with great speed and slashed Himiko, who stumbled backwards. Eric and Lip both grabbed the wolf monster and pulled him away from Himiko. Eric punched the monster, then Elias jumped up and kicked him. Mark flipped forward and hit it with a double punch, making it stumble back. Fenrir stabled itself, then laughed. All 5 members stood in a line. Mark put his hands behind his back. Eric slipped on his ring. Elias grabbed hold of his necklace. Himiko grabbed her hairpin. And the spirit of the god Ra appeared next to Lip.
It's morphin' time!
Mark called out. Mark held out his Cornish power morpher, and it popped open.
Kono Bisficken!
Mark called out. Then the morpher dematerialized, leaving the coin floating there. Mark then morphed into his ranger suit. His helmet formed over his head. Then the coin started spinning and it flew at Mark, hitting Mark in the chest. The coin shattered and Mark's Cornish chest shield formed around him. Mark had morphed into the red Cornish Ranger. Eric held out his fist. His green Celtic ring started to glow.
Now you're not Kilchuck!
Eric called out. Then he held up his fist into the air and suddenly a Celtic rune formed above him. He then lowered his arm and the rune lowered itself down and it phased over Eric, his ranger suit forming over him as the rune descended down. As the rune touched the ground, it vanished. Eric had morphed into the gold Celtic Ranger. Elias pulled off his necklace and crushed the crystal in his hand. The energy that came from the crystal formed into a sword sheathed in its shield. Elias grabbed the handle, which extended from the top of the shield, and pulled the sword out and held it up to the sky.
The Odin's craft, Vogden Veda.
Elias called out. Then the blue energy seeped out of its blade and it formed around him. Then the energy formed into his ranger suit. His horns grew from his helmet as he sheathed his sword. Elias had morphed into the blue Viking Ranger. Lip held out his arm. Ra appeared behind him and sunk his talons into his forearm. White veins rippled through his wrist, and a wristbound morpher appeared, in the shape of a falcon head. Lip then held out his black crystal scarab, its wings opened and the key extended. He then opened the falcon's mouth and placed the key inside, and then closed the mouth down. Capra! Lip called out. Then the falcon eyes started to glow, and the energy wave pulsed from his morpher and it wrapped around Lip's entire body, forming into his ranger suit. Ra, the god of the sun, then merged into Lip's body, and his helmet formed around his head. Lip had morphed into the white Egyptian ranger of Ra. Himiko grabbed the cherry blossom hairpin that kept her hair up, and she pulled it out, her hair draping over her shoulders.
Attention time. Neo no Mayo no Temi me.
Himiko called out. Then the tip of the pin started glowing. She dropped the pin and it sank into the ground through a veil of light. Then Himiko was encased in a giant flower bud. The pink flower started to glow, and it opened. The flower exploded in a flurry of petals. Himiko stood there in her ranger suit. She had morphed into the pink Japanese ranger. The Red Cornish Ranger ran at Fenrir and slashed the monster with his power sword. He managed to hit the monster several times before being slashed himself by the monster's claws. The Blue Viking Ranger ran in and slammed the rim of a shield into the monster before taking a step forward and slashing the monster down. Then the Pink Japanese Ranger jumped overhead and slashed the monster with her katana. Fenrir grabbed the blade and kicked the Ranger back. The Gold Ranger rolled in and jabbed the monster several times. Fenrir retaliated by grabbing the Ranger and throwing him into the incoming Pink and Red Ranger, knocking them all down to their feet.
I will destroy the statue later,
Fenrir growled. Then Fenrir ran off, running off on all fours. Oh, no you don't, the Ranger Ra barked. Then his wings burst from his back and he took flight and soared after Fenrir. He chased the monster out of the park and up a hill. He flapped his wings and the feather blades rained down on Fenrir. The monster jumped up to his feet, turned around and howled at the blades, and a purple energy wave left the monster's mouth, which deflected the blades. The Ranger of Ra swooped down and tried to slash Fenrir, but the monster howled again, the second wave hitting the Ranger of Ra head-on, which sent him staggering. Then he crashed into the fountain. The Ranger of Ra demorphed and Lip climbed out of the fountain, his clothes and hair dripping wet. He sat on the ledge of the fountain and hung his head in frustration.
"Hey there, friend. You're looking a little wet,"
said a voice. Lip looked up and saw a young gentleman holding out a towel. Lip took the towel and wrapped it around himself. "Thank you," Lip muttered.
"You're lucky it was in the truck,"
the man said as he sat next to Lip and sighed. "So you're just passing through with a bunch of towels?" Lip noted sarcastically.
"Well, I travel a lot, and I like to help people,"
the guy told him. "Fair enough. Got a name?" Lip asked.
"Heimdall. And you?"
The guy replied. "Philip, but my friends call me Lip," Lip told him.
"What do I call you then?"
Heimdall joked. "You can call me Lip," Lip said with an eye roll. Then Lip looked down the way and saw his team, now demorphed, running towards him. "Hey, there are my friends," Lip announced.
"Can I give you some advice?"
Heimdall asked. "Sure," Lip replied.
"I can see you're untrusting to others. Maybe you had a bad childhood, or you've been roughed up in life, or maybe the world has just gone to hell. But sometimes there's a reason to trust. Family, friends, loved ones, fun times, a good cause. Either way, don't let past events affect present or future ones. Learn to trust again,"
Heimdall told him. Lip sat there for a few seconds and thought about what the stranger had said. He was correct. Lip didn't trust anybody. Maybe one or two, but he kept his trusting circle to a bare minimum. He looked to his left and Heimdall had vanished. Lip looked round, but the man was gone. Then his friends stopped next to him and they had finally reached him, and now they're also out of breath.
Lip, you shouldn't have done that.
Mark snapped. I didn't see you coming up with a grand plan, Lip replied.
Yo, everyone chill. 3 of us was down, Lip had a shot, he took it, and failed it. It happens.
Eric barked back.
Yes, Eric has a point.
Mark sighed. Lip nodded at him. Himiko looked at Elias, who had gazed off into the distance. His mind was elsewhere. He's trying to figure out something.
Elias, what are you thinking?
Himiko asked him as she stood in front of him.
He was a black wolf monster, called himself Finroar. Sounds like Fenrir. He called Odin his grandfather. I think the monster is Fenrir.
Elias stated.
Who's Fenrir?
Himiko asked, confused.
I ain't a mythological buff like Elias, but even I know Fenrir is Loki's kid.
Eric stated with a chuckle.
Wait, Loki has children?
Himiko gasped.
In my universe, I think it's the same in Eric and Mark's, but Loki has 3 children. The World Serpent, the Goddess of Death, and Fenrir, the Sun Eater. Some say Odin killed him, some say he eats Odin, and one of Odin's sons gets revenge. He called the statue grandfather.
Elias explained.
Seems like the morphing grip changed history in this universe.
Himiko sighed as she sat down next to Lip.
And in a lot of cases, there's no proof gods even exist in the first place.
Mark stated. Okay, all of this to one side, how the hell do we find him? Lip asked.
The Chimera monster and the Yucatea monster were creatures turned into monsters, and they were both looking for something. The Yucatea monster actually did find something. What if Fenrir is doing the same?
Eric questioned.
He was after the Odin statue. Let's stake it out and wait. We know he will return.
Mark stated. They all took their positions and waited for a few hours. Everyone started getting tired when suddenly Eric noticed Fenrir creeping around the fountain park, an inch towards the Odin statue.
I've got eyes on him.
Eric muttered into his communicators. You gotta allow us try this, Lip responded.
Nobody else move, without my say-so.
Mark ordered. Fenrir stood in front of the Odin statue and took a deep breath in. Then Elias walked around from behind the statue and revealed himself.
What do you want?
Fenrir growled.
Fenrir, I know you're in there. I know you don't want to do this. It's just the emotions. The monster spell, maybe. I know you're different than this.
Elias told him.
Shut up and move!
Fenrir roared. He threw out his claws and several energy waves flew at Elias. He rolled out of the way and the energy waves hit the statue, destroying it, the statue falling apart into rubble. Fenrir walked up to the rubble and with one hand he threw the biggest chunk of rubble away, bent down and picked up a piece of black stone, covered in Norse mythology runes. Suddenly, Loki teleported next to Fenrir and held out his hand. Well done, my son, Loki muttered. Fenrir handed Loki the piece of the stone.
That's Loki. Everyone, move in.
Mark ordered. Everyone ran in and morphed. The Rangers dived at Loki. Loki looked at the Rangers and grinned, then teleported away, leaving the Rangers to deal with Fenrir.
No! Don't leave! Turn me back!
Fenrir roared to the sky. The Rangers surrounded Fenrir. He stood there growling a deep, monstrous growl. Then he howled, his head thrown back. His howl echoed throughout the whole place. Then a surge of purple energy rippled through him, and he started to grow. He grew to a monstrous size.
We need the Global Zords, now!
The Red Ranger called out. Then the Red Knight Zord, the Blue Viking Zord, the Pink Samurai Zord, the Gold Warrior Zord, and the White Pharaoh Zord all appeared before the gigantic Fenrir.
Alright, dude. You take the lead on this one.
The Red Cornish Ranger told the Blue Viking Ranger.
Don't worry, I got this.
The Blue Viking Ranger nodded. Then all the Rangers jumped up and entered their Zords. Then they combined. The Blue Viking Zord combined with the Horse Zord, becoming the torso. The Pharaoh and the Samurai Zord becoming the arms, and the Knight and Warrior Zord becoming the legs. They all combined into the Megazord.
Global Megazord! Viking formation!
The Blue Viking Ranger called out. The Global Megazord stood there with a big sword and shield in its grasp. It ran at Fenrir and swung its sword and slashed at the monster. Then Fenrir swung his claws at the Megazord and the shield was raised and took the slash. The Megazord jumped forward and rammed into the monster, knocking the monster back. Then Fenrir started to howl and the energy pulse erupted from the monster's mouth, but the Megazord swung the shield up, smacking the monster in the chin, cutting him off mid-howl. The Megazord slashed Fenrir twice, before ramming its shield into the monster again. Then it dealt the final slash. Fenrir fell and exploded. The Rangers returned to the ground and demorphed. Then, from the explosion, Fenrir appeared. The giant wolf landed in front of the team. All of them staggered backwards in shock and awe, and in fear.
I thank you for releasing me from my father's clutches.
Fenrir roared, its voice exploding in their heads.
You're welcome,
Mark replied.
Where have you been? We didn't know you existed. How is that possible?
Himiko asked the wolf.
Well, my father hid me in a pocket dimension. I am unaware of my siblings' whereabouts until he turned me into his monster so I would comply to his demands.
Fenrir explained. Yo, what's with the stone? Lip asked.
I do not know. I'm sorry.
Fenrir sighed.
Where will you go, Fenrir?
Elias asked the gigantic wolf.
My brother is too big to hide, and my sister is too well needed to be locked away, so I shall find them.
Fenrir explained.
We will do whatever it takes to free the gods and mythical entities. We promise. Loki, your father, will not get away with what he did to you.
Mark stated.
Thank you, Rangers, and good luck.
Fenrir said with a bow of his head. Then Fenrir turned around and ran off, bolting away in the distance, disappearing from sight. Now what, boss? Lip asked as they all stood there watching Fenrir disappear.
I don't know about you guys, but I want to know why Loki has got 2 pieces of black stone, each with their own markings, and why he is getting mythical creatures to do it.
Mark stated.
I can't help but to think things are getting worse.
Himiko sighed. Elias blurted.
Dude, we know. It's god statues and memorabilia.
Eric replied.
Oh god, I just got it. I know how we figure out the next target.
Elias muttered, then he ran back to the Odin statue and stood next to the rubble. The team followed him in awe and confusion.
Yeah, but it's more. The Chimera monster was attacking things that represented Zeus, but he didn't find it. Instead, it was in the mountains. Zeus was known as a slithering lizard and would have hidden his piece without anyone knowing it. Odin was all ego. He would have hidden his piece in his own statue. But that got me thinking. Loki didn't seem pleased when he got given that stone, which begs the argument there is more pieces. Maybe it's a collection or pieces of some stone.
Elias explained. Elias, bro, get to the point, Lip moaned.
What are Zeus and Odin to their pantheons?
Elias asked with a raised eyebrow.
They are the fathers to their pantheons, the kings, the leaders, so to speak.
Himiko replied with curiosity.
Exactly. Let's say there's a 3rd or 4th piece. Then we need to start looking for father of pantheons, their statues, wells, whatever the case may be.
Elias nodded.
Seems like you're on to something, man. Well done.
Mark said with a grin.
We have a lead. We should update Brohan.
Eric stated. Then everyone agreed and headed for the library.
Mark, the Red Cornish Ranger, was played by Mark, the Red Cornish Ranger. Elias, the Blue Viking Ranger, was played by Cosplay Sun 637. Himiko, the Pink Japanese Ranger, was played by Cosplay Wife 637. Eric, the Gold Celtic Ranger, was played by Cosplay Dude 637. Lip, the Ranger of Raw, was played by Tai Tiger. And Heimdall was played by me, Jared.
And Fenrir and his monstrous form, Fenrir, was voiced by Cosplay Sun 637.
This podcast is a production of the Three Ranger Bros Studios, in association with Zio to Hero, the podcast.
And there we have it, guys. Thank you very much for listening to this story. If you've enjoyed this story, then you might want to check out all of my Tiger Tales channels. I'm going to give you a quick rundown. There's Tiger Tales, the first and the original. This is a place where you'll find stories and fanfictions diving into all sorts of fandoms, including Power Rangers, Pokemon, The Walking Dead, Marvel, DC, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and so much more. Tiger Tales The Lost Stories follows the same suit, but all the stories on that channel are in the first person perspective. Then there's Tiger Tales Game Over, a channel where all of the storylines are related to video games in some way or another. Then we have Tiger Tales X, where I write official crossovers that aren't needed but are very wanted, and crossovers I thought might work. Then, of course, we have Tiger Tales Mysterious Origins. This is the YouTube channel dedicated to my own original stories. All the stories on this channel are original and my own, and it also answers questions on certain characters throughout my stories, like William Cranston, Mr. Pocket, and Ace from the Color Matrix. If you've enjoyed these storylines, then please make sure you check out the following podcasts: Storytime with Cosplay Dude 637, Power Rangers Universe 19, Sailor Moon E, and The Order. And make sure you check out 2 YouTube channels, Nostalgia Time and the One Piece audio drama. They are all written and read to you and edited by Cosplay Dude 637, my Parabatai and best friend. Then make sure you check out the podcast Nerds Through Comics, which is directed by Mark, the Red Cornish Ranger. This is where he adapts comic books into audio dramas and also uploads his own original Power Ranger storylines. We are the Three Ranger Bros Studios, a collaborative project, and we are all voice actors and helpers of each other's stuff, so make sure you go check us out. We're in association with the Zio to Hero podcast, so a huge shout out to Billy and Jim, the co-hosts, and of course the podcast and the community that they lead. If we're shouting out podcasts, I have to shout out Jared, the host of If You Give It Down a Podcast. Make sure you check it out because he interviews some fantastic guests, from wrestlers to voice actors and the such. And of course, if we're talking podcasts, I have to mention my own, the Tiger Nexus podcast, where I interview content creators and geeks alike. A huge shout out to all my supporters and followers, my voice actors, the people who co-write my chapters, and the sorts. So huge thank you, and of course, a big shout out to A-Crown. Specifically him, because he helps me a lot with some of my stories, specifically the Color Matrix and the chapters that go on Tiger Tales Game Over. Thank you very much guys for listening. Now don't forget to subscribe to the channels, like the videos, and let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. With that being said, I shall see you guys in the next one.
That before we can...
Don't touch my Pringles.